Alrighty, greetings to all of my dearest Chun-Li warriors, and welcome back to another Sage's Dojo session. This is your host, Sage Armageddon, coming to you again in the foreground of Gimbo Temple. Please forgive me for my absence. I think it was the flu that I had. It put me out of commission for quite some time. So that's why I've been missing in action for a minute here. Haven't really been playing Street Fighter as much, though I have still been continuing my training, just haven't been really playing online, unfortunately. But I'm back now, and it's good to see all of you again here in Gimbo Temple once again. Now, in this session, for my return, what I wanted to go ahead and discuss is a technique that I use. This is probably by no means some novel technique that nobody else has used, but it's something that I discussed. It was a eureka moment for myself that really helped to deal with some of the issues when it comes to Chun-Li's anti-air, which is, of course, our Tensho kicks. Actually, let me turn this input delay off here. There we go. Okay. This is actually the Tensho kicks. Now, one of the things with the Tensho kicks is that unfortunately, as we already know, Tensho Kicks has a few problems as well as some supplemental problems that add to the potential of failure for this technique. Some of the issues with the Tensho Kicks are, of course, the input. Since you have to strictly push down, down, you can double tap it, but it does have to be down, down. It has to return to neutral. So your thumbstick, you can't keep your thumbstick down. Right now I'm clicking, I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm kind of clicking my thumbstick, but I'm not returning up enough. See, you have to go enough so that it registers that you're returning to neutral and then push down again. This can be fast, but in the context of a fighting game, those few nanoseconds to milliseconds can really make a difference, right? Between you getting jumped on or actually controlling the neutral. And one of the things with this is that not only if you play, I mean, obviously we're playing online, so online lag will play a role in it when you're playing online, the connection, as well as if you are playing on consoles, there is a bit of an inhibitor when it comes to input delay on consoles as well. So those two things can combine to create a problem. But the major problem with Tensho Kicks, which is what makes it kind of abysmal as an anti-air, is because it just doesn't make any sense for what Chun-Li is trying to do. Chun-Li is supposed to control the neutral. In my book, in order for a character or a deck or anything competitively speaking to be truly considered successful or good at what it's trying to do is how efficiently it can do that thing and with how much efficacy. Now, of course, how this will be balanced out is strengths and weaknesses. All right. I think it's a good idea for every character to have defined strengths and weaknesses because we perceive strength and weakness as two separate things, but I would say that they're the same thing. A weakness exists because of a strength and vice versa. The hammer is good at hammering specifically because it is terrible at cutting, if you catch my drift. So if you were to suddenly turn that hammer into a saw, it would be great at cutting wood, but it would be terrible at driving nails and screws, right? So you get what I mean? The strength and the weakness are interconnected. And understanding that can really help to evolve the way that we think about things, right? So having defined strengths and weaknesses is something that I think is important and integral to characters. And Chun's weaknesses, of course, are the major one is the lack of throw oki. But that will be fine if you could control neutral more easily. And one of the key things to controlling neutral is anti-airing. You don't want people to jump, right? And the key thing that people want to do when it comes to anti-airing is you want it to be second nature. You don't want to have to spin your mental stack worrying about people jumping. The whole point of training with this is because there is quite a lot of time to react to this, even with someone with slower reaction speed, right? There's quite a bit of time. So the whole goal is to train to the point where you can focus on all the things in front of you, such as a large percent of your mental stat being on dealing with drive, rush, and neutral skips, and then maybe like 20 to 10% on catching whiffs, whiff punishing people for making mistakes and stuff like that, and avoiding your opponent's range. And then the goal is to be able to instinctively respond to somebody jumping, right? Part of the way we do that is by relaxing the mental stack. If we have somebody jump like this, the goal is instead of doing it the moment we see them leave the ground, we wait until the last possible second. Right. This gives you plenty enough time to get that maximum reaction time. This makes it so you don't have to put your mental stack into it. That's supposed to be the goal, and that's usually how it is for characters like Ryu and Ken. With adequate training, you can make it so that you don't have to actually, put mental stack into anti-airing. That's one of the reasons why I think modern is unfair and broken. They do have a lack of tools. They don't have access to all of their tools, but the ability to, especially in lower level to intermediate level play, the ability to pretty much shut your brain off in anti-air, or when you fight a modern player, you notice that you cannot anti-air. It doesn't seem to matter what rank they are, right? You just can't do it. Right? Because there is like zero mental stack for it because it's so easy. Right? Um, but characters like Ryu and Guile and such, Terry, they can easily keep you out of the air. Elena easily keep you out of the air. Even though Jamie too, even though Jamie's anti-air is technically has problems too, because of the input and having weight trained by picking the character that is known as Chun-Li, it makes it a lot easier to anti-air with Jamie. I was surprised how easy it was to keep people out of the air, even though I am not instinctively used to doing a dragon kick motion. So all of that to say this, keeping people out of the air is important. You want your mental to be on what's happening in front of you. Fortunately, because of the way Chun-Li's input is, most Chun-Li players, not all of them, but most Chun-Li players have suffered the affliction of having to watch the air. This makes it harder to control this space, which is the neutral, because that 20 to 10% of your mental stack that you want to be using on spacing and catching whiffs and things of that nature, you have to allocate that to keeping people out of the air. So it's a lot easier to miss people to miss people whiffing big buttons like this because you're too busy trying to make sure that they're not in the air. Because we've seen how it is when you get caught by a surprise jump in, when you're crouch blocking and somebody decides that they want to jump like this. And you say, hey, wait a minute, and then you get something like that, and then you just get completely hit, right? That happens all the time to me, right? Even after all the training that I have done, and I'm pretty sure you guys feel it too, right? But that brings us to the topic that I want to discuss here is the technique that I think would help when it comes to managing to use the Tensho kicks. And this is something that I have done and trained with in order to make things a little bit easier. Tensho kicks, the issues with it are, we said, there's no shortcut for it. So because of the lack of a shortcut, it makes it very difficult to do anything else. If you're doing stuff like this, you have to stop doing it and go into this. Obviously, with characters like Ryu, you can do stuff like this, and then still be buffering your Shoryuken, right? You could be doing this and still get your Shoryuken. You can be crouching and then get your Shoryuken without ever having to return to neutral. As you can see, there's no on the right side, on Ryu's side, there is no neutral input in his commands until the very end. The very beginning and the very end. There's no neutral in between that. Chun-Li, there has to be a neutral in between it. There has to be. So you have to, returning from a direction to neutral takes time and energy. That's one of the reasons why, like if you think about fighters, there's a reason why they tell you to put your guard up if you're a boxer or something like that. You put your guard up because you're already in position. You don't have to waste time, energy, and mental stat in order to avoid certain options. If you have your guard up, if your opponent tries to go for a random hook, your arm is right there to block it. So if they try to hook you, even if you don't realize it immediately, you're gonna block the hook because your arm is there. This makes it so that it is not an option. So if you position yourself correctly, your opponent has to work around that guard, right? So having to constantly return to having to stop what you're doing and return to neutral to double tap down, neutral, down, means that you are removing your guard. Ryu doesn't have to remove his guard. He could do something like this even, but he can just go straight into Shoryuken. You don't have to stop doing what you're doing in order to get a Shoryuken. And that's part of that's the biggest problem with Tensho kicks. You have to stop doing what you're doing in order to do this. As a character who is supposed to control the neutral, having tools that distract you from being able to do that is inefficient character design, if you ask me. Another problem with the Tensho kicks is that sometimes when you do the Tensho kicks, you can easily be hit out of it because there's a multiple hitting attack. Now, it might be hard to replicate here, but there are times where, as you can see right there, where you'll do the Tensho kicks, but because there is a gap in between the attack, your opponent can hit you through that, right? There's also situations where if you will hit them with one part of the attack, and the second part will actually drop out. Now, this is also hard to replicate, but it happens in the heat of battle. I know some League warriors out there know what I'm talking about. First hit will get them, and then the second part of the Tensho kicks will randomly drop. You can look at Broski, one of his more recent. Obviously, you know Broski is a highly efficient pro-level Street Fighter player. He has some recent videos in the last 2 weeks in which he's playing Chun-Li, and he actually goes over some of his thoughts after playing Chun-Li. And one of the things he mentions is that randomly, he almost crashed out because he caught somebody jumping, and the second or third part of the Tensho kick, depending on which strength you use, will randomly drop. And so as a result, while Chun-Li is still going into the air, the opponent drops out and they recover fast enough to drive rush you and put you into a strike throw mix for you making the right call. Those, like I said, this whole being hit in between the Tensho kicks and people dropping out of the Tensho kicks is rare, but it adds up supplementally when you consider the difficulty of doing the Tensho kicks in general. This makes it mathematically increased percent chance of failure of checking somebody that is airborne with the character. And as a character who is supposed to control the neutral, that's her whole thing. This can't stand, and hopefully Capcom gets the hint like SNK did. SNK gave you the option to do a dragon motion kick with Chun in Fatal Fury City of the Wolves, right? The competition knows better. So I hope Capcom does something about that. And if they can't do something about that, then just strengthen her in other areas. But now that we know about Tensho kicks and why it is so annoying, even though it's technically her most go-to anti-air, now we can talk about the technique that I was mentioning. Now, this is something that I call cross-buffering. It involves basically, because if you remember the session that I mentioned about movement, where you want to make sure that you keep, like if you're moving forward, for example, like this, you want to make sure that you crouch block in between your movements. That way you can, because this is a 2D fighting game, it's very easy to get blitzed by somebody that just randomly decides to press a button. So while this isn't foolproof in keeping you from being hit, sometimes you will get caught when you're trying to advance forward. This decreases your percentage chance of actually being caught by a random attack because you are kind of like fuzzy guarding in between the movements. So this is a pretty good way to creep forward and take space without being wide open like this. You do lose a tiny bit of movement speed, but it's not that much, right? You can combine it with just moving too. If you're out of your opponent's range to be hit by something, you can just move. But like when you get into this range, it's probably better to keep your guard up so that way, if you miscalculate, you don't get caught by a random crouch medium kick, right? You want to block that. Even though blocking that is still bad, it's better than just being hit outright. Your opponent has to do more. We're thinking in terms of percent chance of success, right? We're thinking in terms of math here, even though I'm terrible at math, but either way it goes. So when we're kind of doing this fuzzy guard to move forward, sometimes in order to back away from the opponent in order to like really try to, you know, control this space and make them whiff and stuff like that. Instead of just backing up like this, because once we're in this range, we're susceptible to being hit by a crouching medium kick. We can back up like this, right? So when you combine this movement of moving back like this with this movement of moving forward, you are naturally also I'm naturally also taking a trip to down as well. I do it very quickly, so I do down, back, down, down, forward, down, down, back, down, forward. So while I'm doing this, I am buffering the first portion of the Tensho kicks, so that if my opponent happens to be airborne while I'm doing this, I have a very high percent chance of already being pre-buffered to try to turn the Tensho kicks closer to being a modern Tensho kick, so which is where you just push one direction and push one button instead of having the down, neutral, down, and then push the kick button. This kind of turns it into almost like a modern input. So what this does is this makes it so that it's a little bit faster. Now, like I said, it's not foolproof because as you're doing this, there is a chance that you might still mess up. It happens to me too, because when you're trying to do the cross buffer, you might not be hitting down exactly, so you might end up messing up the input. But what it allows for you to do is it actually allows for you to be able to, like I stated, kind of you're kind of pretty much the layman's terms is you are buffering the Tensho kicks while still controlling this space here, right? Now, other characters do something similar. Like you might see like Ryu and Ken players do something like this, right? They're kind of buffering just in case you jump. Chun-Li is just a little bit different because I am taking a trip to the down button purposefully, as you can see by my inputs there. You're going to see down coming in between those. So this is allowing me to kind of try to replicate what these characters do while still being able to control space and keep my guard up at the same time so that it's not an option for me to be surprised by something once I'm in this range. Again, unless you're fighting Dawson or JP or something, when you're all the way back here, you can just move freely because you have plenty enough time to respond to anything that'll reach you. In this matchup, at least against Ryu, like I said, if you're fighting Dawson or JP or something, or Kimberly, you're gonna want to keep your guard up. But if you're fighting Ryu, you can just, you can move normally until you get into a specific range. Then you want to be careful, right? So this is just kind of positioning. Positioning is very important in many facets of life. It's important when in certain job roles. It's important in fighting games. It's even important in single player games like Sekiro from soft games like Sekiro is a FromSoft game, but like Souls games like Elden Ring. Like positioning is important because obviously that's what spacing is, right? Spacing is positioning, but you also want to position yourself so that your guard is up. Which, as we stated, when you're trying to crouch block, which is the best way to guard yourself, generally speaking, makes it very hard to get a Tensho kick if you're just blocking low like this. Also, this allows you to kind of control space as well in order to try to catch whiffs, which is what we want to do with this character because she's supposed to be all about neutral and footsies and stuff like that, right? So when we do this cross buffer, I'm going to go ahead and show you. I'm actually going to put the input delay back up because this is how I train, but I want to show how effective it is. I'm going to go ahead and pick Cammy. This crap right here was something that like I had no shot of ever dealing with. Let me actually make the recording first. I'm going to record Cammy to, let's turn all of these off, and I'm going to make the first recording to, I'm going to have Cammy do a little shimmy like this. We're going to crank that up to 3, and I'm going to have Cammy do a cannon strike. Let me see if I can get that closer to the ground. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the input light back on. But what we're going to show you is I'm going to show you how I would normally try to handle using Tensho kicks for this, and let's see how successful we are with that. All right, Cammy, go ahead. See, I didn't even stand a chance. Not even a chance. I'm doing it way too slow. I'm not even getting to down for Tensho kicks until she does the cannon strike, right? And Cammy is the most egregious example of trying to deal with somebody suddenly airborne. But you also have characters like Sagat and Viper who will do tiger knees and burn kicks, and you need to be ready for that crap, right? I managed to get her once there, but as you can see, the failure rate is very high here. Most of the time, I'm not even getting to down by the time I realize she's jumping, right? The Candy used to pretty much be a free win against me because of this madness, right? But then when I applied the cross buffer, let's see how well we do. Okay, she missed me, so I was actually still too slow. Yep, there we go. I was able to block that one. Yep. Gotcha. It's a little tough even with the input lag on. It's kind of like this is how I train to really make it though. But if we were to turn the input delay off in just a moment here, we'll try a few more times. There we go. See if we can catch her one more time. I did Tensho right there. You can see it. It's not the easiest. Gotcha. All right, cool. Now let's try turning the input lag off a little bit here. Gotcha. 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 See, compared to before, that there was no shot in heck of me being able to stop that, right? Yeah. And let me go ahead and record one more for Cammy here. Let's crank this up to 4. And then we're gonna... It's hard to do this quick without messing up the input cadence. Yep. We'll crank this up to 5 actually, and then let's go ahead and have Cammy. Gotcha. Gotcha. Whoops. Gotcha. I did Tensho right there. It's still hard, but compared to when I was just doing this, as you can see here, like I stand no chance doing it this way, even without the input lag. Like I literally don't stand a chance in heck of getting it in time in this range right here without the cross buffer. There's no way I can stop it, right? But the cross buffer allows me to be ready for when she does it. Keep in mind that since I am not completely focused on the task at hand, since you know we are doing a dojo session as well, so that is going to slow me down a little bit as well. Gotcha. But hopefully you can see from the examples here what I'm talking about. Right? I have like a 0%. I think I got one time where just moving back and forth like this, I was able to suddenly get Tensho kick. So, like I said, you can't shortcut this. However, the cross buffer kind of is a bit of an ingenious way. This isn't to give myself credit, but it is a bit of an ingenious way of thinking about things to try to find a way to solve problems. So this kind of helps to make it so that the Tensho kicks are a little bit more viable to catch surprise jump ins. And if somebody does a regular jump in, it's just going to be smooth sailing compared to the way Tensho kicks was beforehand, right? Because we need to be able to keep people out of the air, and more importantly, we need to be able to do so without adding more stress to this game. Let's be honest, this is a stressful game, especially for people that aren't playing at really high levels, right? If you're not like a super high level player and or a pro, um, they have hardened their reaction times to transcendent levels, and their ability to respond in a defensive manner are just on a completely different plane of existence, right? So if you're not that type of player, like anybody that is even, I would say, high level players, like just regular high level players to intermediate, especially beginners, it's already hard enough because things happen in this game very fast. There are a lot of things that are hard to keep up with. I know I have trouble keeping up with the speed and pressure of some of the stuff happening in this game, right? It's a part of the reason why I don't like Marvel fighting games because everything is happening at crack speed and I can't tell what's going on. Was a part of the reason why I don't like those type of fighting games. But this game can be stressful, and it's Chun-Li can be stressful to use because of stance mix-ups and having to know the exact routing and inputs for your moves and stuff like that. So this character can already be stressful. The game is already stressful. We don't want to make it even more stressful for ourselves by struggling to be able to do what the character is supposed to do. Like I was saying, as a character that's supposed to control neutral, first you have to enforce neutral, and the most important way of doing that is being able to control the skies without stressing yourself to oblivion doing so. And unfortunately, Chun-Li makes it extremely difficult to do that because of the input, as I explained earlier. But this cross buffer technique helps to kill quite a few birds in one stone. It helps you to retract and take space while keeping your guard up, as well as slightly manipulating your hurt box. As you can see, Chun-Li, her upper body hurt box is moving, it's shifting a little bit. So higher hitting attacks there's a slight chance that they might whiff if somebody goes for a high attack while you're doing all this, right? You're putting your guard up with a fuzzy guard, so to speak. So when you're in this range, if your opponent tries to do a crouch medium kick, there's a very high chance you are going to block it. It's a lot higher than trying to do this and then pushing down back. You're already doing it. Like we said about the example with fighters, you have your guard up already. You have your guard in position, so you don't have to take that energy, retract that energy, and move it to another point. That takes time and effort, and that time and effort is plenty enough time for an opening for your opponent to catch you, right? So you can minimize having to worry about that by being able to creep back and forth like this. Now, this might take some practice, but I have a dojo session talking about movement. I believe it is the Master Series dojo session, and it goes over how you can slowly break these movements down. I'm probably a little bit more adept at it as a Tekken player. I'm very used to, as you can see by my inputs, if you play Tekken, this is pretty much a wave dash input, and then this is a Korean backdash input, right? So I'm a little bit adept at doing this because Tekken, the very fundamental thing is movement. It is the thing that you're doing the most in the game, and it is the thing that separates the highest level players from lower level players, right? So I am very used to doing this with Jin and Kazuya from playing Tekken 7 and a lot of Tekken 7 and quite a bit of Tekken 8, right? So very used to doing this. But if you're having trouble with it, depending on your peripheral, just break it down. Start by moving forward, then holding down, move forward, down, then back down, back down. Slow it down, and then speed it up as necessary. And eventually you'll get used to it, then train against dummies at level 8 or something of that nature. Train online and just get used to moving like this. And then once you get used to the movements, then you can cross buffer by adding down every time you forward, down, down, back, down, forward, down, back, down. And then next thing you know, you're cross buffering. This is the technique I call it. There's probably already something coined for this. It's just a form of buffering, right? But it's something specific to Chun-Li because it's a way to try to cut out the middleman and try to, as much as possible, recreate a modern input for Tensho kicks, right? So that was pretty much the idea. Training with this, especially training with it under delay and really pushing myself, had really helped to sharpen up my anti-air. Not even 3 4 months ago, I was still anti-airing with this, which is okay, and I still use it from time to time. It's a very good way to catch people by, like, that try to jump by surprise. And doesn't take a lot of mental stack, but it is not reliable. It's very easy to be hit out of that. And you can also very easily you can be hit out of that, and you don't really, it's not very good for dealing with a lot of airborne attacks. Now I'll go over this move in more detail in another dojo session, because for certain matchups, this can be a god weapon in order to help turn the matchup on its head. But it's, generally speaking, like for Viper burn kicks, Sagat Tiger knees, stuff like that. This isn't as going to be as effective, generally speaking, as this. If people are doing those things by surprise, you want to do stuff like this. Now, if they're being predictable with those moves and like they have a clear pattern, then you can switch to something like this in order to put them in a juggle state and get a combo. But generally speaking, like if you're just fighting the opponent and they don't seem to be and they seem to be very random and sporadic with when they do those super fast maneuvers, you want to try to be ready with this one. Right? Not as much reward from it, but it is very reliable. You don't have to worry about being hit out of that as long as you get the move out of it. Now, yeah, so those are all of the things that I wanted to mention mainly about this cross buffering technique and Tensho kicks. I've seen a lot greater success with keeping airborne moves and aerial opponents check. Like I said, it's not completely foolproof. While you're cross buffering, your opponent might still jump while you're on the crux of doing a down back movement, and then it's still the same situation as, oh, I have to let go of that and double tap down. But it increases your percent chance of being successful against people jumping, especially if you can catch a rhythm from your opponent and you can like line the cross buffer up to when you're going to think they're going to jump, right? So this has helped me a lot when it comes to the Tensho kick madness. Hopefully this technique will help all of you out there as well. Let me know what you think about it. If you have anything that you wanted to add or comment about it, or if you have anything else, any insights to help make Tensho or anti-airing and controlling neutral easier with Chun-Li, please share that information. I am always looking for more information to adjust the method of thinking that I might have, because in my book, there are many things that can help you to advance in competitive games, but methods of thinking I have found to be the most game-changing, because they terraform your understanding of the game and what's happening in the game in such a way where they immediately can boost your stats across the board. If you have any hidden tidbits, feel free to share those. I'm always looking to learn more and add to my repertoire here. So, but yeah, that's going to be it for this dojo session. I do want to thank you all very much for attending and for your support. Thank you again. Feel free to like the video if you like it, subscribe if you're willing, and this is going to be Sage Armageddon signing out. Have an awesome day.